Pit of the Dust Goblins is a D&D 5th edition adventure for a party of 5 4th level characters. It was written by James Hake and released by Kobold Press as part of their Eldritch Layers bundle for Roll20. This is a quick one-shot adventure that your party can complete in a single session of between 2 and 4 hours of play. And the basic premise of the adventure is that the players must infiltrate a dilapidated keep that's currently populated with dust goblins. And the module gives several different hooks for why they may want to do that, whether it's to loot the keep for treasure, to wipe out the goblins for a rival goblin boss, or to rescue some human children that the goblins have captured. So that's the basic setup. Let's take a look at what we get in the module. So you start out, you get a single full color map that does have dynamic lighting enabled for it. You also get a bunch of color tokens for each of the monsters that you'll be fighting. And then over here you've got some background information, the adventure hooks, and then the text of the adventure itself. So this is a good, tight little adventure. It took my players about 2.5 hours to go through it. So what I want to do now is kind of walk you through what your players will experience, and I'll give some tips and advice on things that you might want to consider as you're going through this module, and some things that you'll want to be aware of. Okay, so there are 2 ways into the keep itself. The first is through the main doors here in Area 1, and then there's also a crack in the wall that players can get in through down in Area 4. My players didn't find that crack, so we'll go through Area 1 to start with. And in Area 1, there's a battle raging between these giant crusher worms, which are kind of the mindless monsters that live in the area, burrow around under the keep, and the dust goblins themselves. And the dust goblins are a little bit different than your typical goblin. As you can see, they're a bit more feral, they're a bit fiercer. These aren't the run and cower and fear goblins that we all know and love from standard D&D. These ones have some teeth. One thing in particular to be mindful of is that the goblins are twisted. And so when they attack from hiding, their target has to make a successful wisdom save or be frightened until the end of its next turn. So these goblins do a lot of ambush attacks. They're going to jump out of nowhere. They're going to try and scare their targets. And that's really different from your typical goblin. Additionally, their thinking is alien and unfathomable to most creatures, and they don't seem to experience fear. So these goblins are going to be a lot fiercer and a lot more antagonistic than your standard goblin would be. Now, one thing though is the module says that when the players come in, the 2 sides are having a fight. If the fighting parties notice the players, some of the worms and some of the goblins will break off to attack the player characters. Well, my players sent their rogue in. He made all his stealth checks, didn't get noticed, saw the fighting, came back out and basically said there are 2 teams in there fighting each other. And my party just let them beat the crap out of each other and then went in and dealt with what was left. So, if your party thinks like mine does, what you'll want to do is bring in the reinforcement creatures that are down here in Area 3, which are these awesome little dog moles. These are burrowing creatures that eat worms. And the goblins will call the dog moles up to assist them in this fight if the fight goes on for a while. So what I think might make more sense if your players act like mine did would be to just have this fight already be over. Have all the worms be dead or being cleaned up, and the goblins and the dog moles are here so that when the players come in, they just deal with kind of one unified force rather than giving them the opportunity to just let the 2 sides beat the crap out of each other and go from there. The goblins themselves are open to parley with PCs, so they're not going to attack right on sight. So there is some good role-playing opportunities there. If your players want to come in and cut a deal to get the kids back rather than just come in and kill everything, then the goblins will be amenable to that. Now, up here to the north in Area 2, there is a human guard who's been hiding, basically waiting for help so that she can rescue the children. So that's Hana here, and Hana doesn't have a illustrated token. So if you want to have an illustration for her, you're going to need to create one of your own. But she's your basic human guard. She will fight alongside the PCs and help them rescue the kids if they find her up here. My players didn't go north. They never actually found this room, so they didn't get involved with Hana. Also, there is a small crack in the wall here that players can squeeze through where they can find some additional corpses. There are also a bunch of the worms' maggots down here in this pile of corpses, so the players will have to deal with those as well, as those will try and attack them. But let's move on now down into the next area. So your players are going to move down into the main courtyard area here. If the dog moles that are in this room have not been brought up, the players can encounter those. The dog moles themselves can be befriended if a player makes 3 successful animal handling checks, and my dwarf player actually managed to pull that off, so she has a dog mole companion now. Additionally, you'll notice there are a handful of these T icons that are on the map, and these designate traps. Now, in the main text of the adventure, you get a map with a key on it, and W-O, W-I, and P indicate the locations of various types of traps. W-Os are worm traps. These are basically bear traps that will snap up and do damage to the party. Now, the T's, the interesting thing about this is the T's are actually on the GM layer. So I've moved to the GM layer right now, and I've highlighted the T, but the actual trap graphic is on the map layer. So the T on the GM layer is just giving you a reference to where the item is. You want to switch to the map layer in order to actually manipulate the double-sided token that's there. So you go to the map layer, click on where the T is, and then choose side, and you can switch from this invisible token to the trap token. And now, snap, the players have stepped on that and they've taken damage. One thing that I will mention, though, is that the damage and the saves for the worm traps are defined in Area 1 in the text, but they're not duplicated anywhere else. So if you are down here in Area 4 and your players step on one of these traps, you're going to need to scroll up in the text to get that. What I would recommend you do is just copy this text and then put it in the actual description of the trap token, and that way you've just got that handy so that when players step on it, you can just double click and get that information, and you don't need to scroll around trying to find it. Down here in Area 4 is a graveyard. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. The players are then going to move into Area 5. As you can see, there are a handful of goblins up on the walls here waiting to ambush the players if the players are hostile, and there is a wire trap right here as well. Now, what I wound up doing was having one of the goblins jump down off the wall and then try to lead the players into the trap. I think that's a nasty little tactic that'll work out pretty good. One little tiny thing is this Area 5 is labeled on the main map here. You can see this is 5, but there's no actual 5 marker on the battle map for it, which is not a big deal. But for completeness sake, what I did was I rolled a die and I created my own little token. And for those of you who maybe don't know how to do that, just come into your chat, do a roll, a D, whatever you want, say a D4, and then just grab the icon, pull it onto the map, and then you can right click, go multi-sided, choose side, and then, whatever. So I did that with a D10 so that I could get a 5, and I put that on the GM layer. We move past the goblins in here, and then ultimately we get into the keep proper. Now, in Area 6, this is the hallway. The hallway is trapped with both a pit trap and with a wire trap. The pit trap itself, if we look at the text of that, it doesn't give the damage for the pit trap. We get the saves, but not the damage. So just for reference, every 10 feet that you fall in D&D 5e is 1d6 worth of damage. This is a 40-foot trap, so they're going to take 4d6 damage if they fall in there. You may want to put that in the trap's icon, just like what we saw with the worm trap. Like the worm trap icon right here, there is a multi-sided trap that just opens up into a pit like that. Now, if the players move into Area 8, there is a throne over here on the left, and across the arms of the throne is an animated sword. If the players touch the throne, the sword animates and will attack them. They deal with that, and then they can move into Area 9, which is the Lord and Lady of the Keep's former bedchamber. As you can see, it's in total disarray. It's been destroyed. Players can search this room to find up to 500 gold worth of treasure, and there is a spot where they can kind of see into the main Goblin's room and learn about the Goblin's forces here. But if we go across the hall into Area 11, this room has a very interesting moral dilemma for the players. Imprisoned inside this circle is this creature called a Salang. And the Salang is an evil fae. It's a dark satyr. As you can see, it's got the antennae and insect legs rather than goat legs and goat horns. So this Salang has been imprisoned by the leader of the goblins. She basically wants to mate with it and augment her bloodline. So this is a very interesting moral dilemma, because now you have this evil creature that's being imprisoned for basically a forced breeding program. So what do the players do here? Are they going to help this creature? Are they going to leave it? What's their decision on this? The Salang itself is not happy with the goblins, does not like this situation at all, and will agree to help the party kill the goblin. What he does after that is up to you. The module does say he can either reward the players or double cross them completely. He's fickle. So your call there, however you want to do this. Now, the Salang is a powerful creature. He's got a bunch of innate spellcasting abilities. He can throw sleep, suggestion, and fear 3 times a day. And he also has this alien piping ability. And this is a really powerful feature. Basically, all creatures within 60 feet have to make a DC 14 wisdom saving throw or be affected by contagion, confusion, irresistible dance, or hideous laughter. Basically, your choice. And he can use each of those effects once per day. So if the Salang does side with the party, he can throw these effects on the goblins and really ruin their day. Or, more fun, he can throw them on the players after they deal with the goblins and ruin their day. So however you want to approach that. But this is a very powerful creature and formidable for the players to have to address. Ultimately, your players are going to make it into Area 10, and they're going to confront the main goblin force. And the goblins are led by Ciscus. Ciscus is a druid who is calling the shots here. Ciscus is willing to parley with the party. So if they are coming in here to rescue the children, she's willing to talk with them about that. Now, the thing is, the module doesn't say what she's willing to agree to for this. So you've got some flexibility here. You can obviously do it with gold if you want. That's kind of boring, though. So what we can do instead is tie this in with one of the other modules that's included in the Eldritch Lair bundle. Down here in the graveyard, this statue has a hidden passage underneath it that leads you into the next module in the sequence, the Crypt of the Green Shadows. So Ciscus could say that, she's heard weird noises coming from there. She wants the party to investigate. Maybe she's had one of her goblin troops get snatched by something that then fled into a passage underneath the statuary. However you want to do it. But that gives kind of a neat hook to take you into the next module in this pack. But whatever you do here at this point, the players are going to need to deal with these goblins. If you do wipe them out and you are trying to rescue the children are inside this cookpot in the upper left of the map. There is no token for the kids, so if you want one, you're going to need to create your own. But then once you've done that, you are free to leave, and it's up to you, whether or not you want the Salang to help the party or double cross them. I think that if you have a warlock in your party and that warlock has a fey patron, then the Salang could either be an enemy or an emissary of that patron. I think that could open up some interesting possibilities. And, you kind of take it from there. So now with all that said, there are a couple of other things I want to mention about the module just so that you're aware of them. The first is Ciscus herself. Ciscus is a 4th level druid, but she's missing her druidic circle and her wild shape ability here. And you're going to want to put those in because I think that really adds something to her and really rounds her out. So because these goblins are dust goblins, they're creatures of the waste, I would suggest giving Ciscus Circle of the Land, specifically Desert. And then that'll give her access to Blur and Silence for spells, and that can really make this last encounter very, very interesting, because now all of a sudden your spellcasters are mute, or it's much harder to see and hit her, however you want to do that. She also gets an extra cantrip because of Circle of the Land. I would give her Poison Spray for that. And then if you do decide to give her wild shape abilities, make her a poisonous snake. And I think that really will fit well with the theme of the Dust Goblin. Also, depending on your player's preferred style, having the imprisoned Fae may not fit right. Like if your players don't really get into having moral dilemmas like this, that's not going to be any fun for them. So one thing that it does mention in the Dust Goblin description is that Dust Goblins get along with aberrations. So what you could do, if you just want to have this be a straight up fight with everything, is swap out the Salang for a CR4 aberration. Now, if you come out to the monsters list on Roll20, you can see those, and depending on what monster sources you have access to, you will see a whole bunch here. Now, I've got the Tome of Beasts, the Creature Codex, the 5th edition SRD, and the Monster Manual, so I've got a whole bunch here, but you may not have access to all these, right? So if you can do a 1-for-1 swap, I would say go with a Dorek, because these things are just nasty and evil. But that Dorek is coming from one of the Kobold Press specific sources. So if I take those off, if I get rid of the Creature Codex and Tome of Beasts, just go down to the Monster Manual, you can swap out for a similar type aberration. A Chull is an aquatic creature, so that one wouldn't really work, but a Grell would probably be okay. Or swap out for 2 Nothics, and then you've got a roughly similar challenge rating going on there. If you only have the SRD, then you can only use a Chull here. That's fine if that's the way you want to go. But just, you can swap out for something to make it a more just combat-focused scenario if you'd prefer. Just one last thing to mention on this. If you are comfortable with creating your own tokens and loading your own monster information into Roll20, if you come out here to open5e.com, you can actually get a list of all the monster stats for the open source creatures that are in, like Tome of Beasts and Creature Codex. So that Dorek that I mentioned, you can view all of its stats out here, and then just create your own monster entry in your own personal compendium. I'll include a link to the Open5e website in the description below. One other thing to mention is the traps themselves. In Area 1A, there is a trap listed up here, but it's a worm trap, but I can't actually click on the worm trap in the map layer. It's not there. So if you are going to have your players go there, just be mindful that you're going to need to copy and paste one of the trap tokens from a different spot to that area. But that was the only trap token that I had trouble with, so just want to make you aware of that. All in all, this is a fun little module. Like I said, it plays really fast. It was just a couple of hours for my group, and we all had a great time with it. So I definitely recommend you pick this up. The Eldritch Layers pack is available on the Roll20 Marketplace. You get 8 one-shot adventures for $10. So that means each one of these adventures is $1.25. And $1.25 for a map that's really well done with great dynamic lighting and some gorgeous creature artwork is totally worth it to me. So I definitely recommend that you pick this up, and I hope you and your players enjoy it. In the meantime, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing. And in the meantime, folks, thanks for watching and have a great day.